like that, those are still important, we still need them, because they have specialized, material that can be presented, to the soldiery, but this will help us improve ourselves, help us be better soldiers, to be able to go out and evangelize, to the community. You know, a lot of people get assigned to some of these positions, local officer positions, and they'll accept it, but not really have an idea of what's being expected of it. Okay. This will help with that. Okay. So, Academy for Mission Preparedness, or AMP. Resource tool for individuals. It's for individuals that are mission driven. Individuals that have a mind for ministry. And it helps them to develop their gifts and skills. Okay? The overall goal is to provide a path for participants to increase their impact for God in today's world. When I was first introduced to this, and the things that they had, this program, and Major, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this program was originally put together for candidates, 730 candidates, who may not have been 100% ready, okay? So maybe in their spiritual guidance, history of the Salvation Army, because we know that Salvation Army is made up of people from everywhere. They come from all walks of life, other churches. So they may not have the history that they need to be able to impart the Salvation Army message. This program was put together for those individuals at first, to be able to get them up to speed before they were sent to training college. Okay? And then they went ahead and opened it up to all of the soldiery. All right? Valuable information that can be used in your everyday lives. All right? So, the course outline for the AMP, there are a number. AMP is not the only thing that's available through the Salvation Army Learning Center, or the training course offerings. So there's leaders and team development, Academy for Mission Preparedness, what we're talking about now, and other specialized training courses. Okay, we're focusing on AMP because that's what's relevant to us. All right. So, as part of that, the course outlines that they offer is Salvation Army Foundation. That's Salvation Army history. Biblical studies, the studies of the Old and New Testament. Leadership development and personal growth. So the Salvation Army Foundations, it provides that foundational knowledge, what the Salvation Army believes. What's our mission? The foundation of the Salvation Army, history. Our history is rich. The Salvation Army's history is rich. We've done a lot of things, from starting out as a Christian mission in London, helping the poor, helping the disadvantaged, improving working conditions. How many of you know about the matchstick factory? Okay. That was we'll call it a mission to improve working conditions, and it was life-saving, because the way that matches were made back in the day, what was it, sulfur?
Yeah.
Phosphorus. Flossy jaw is what they would end up, because you lick your fingers and it gets the material to stick onto the match head. And that was eating away at the workers' jaws. Okay. Now, mind you, we're not talking about workers like me. We're talking about workers, young people, kids. Okay. Families that were being divided because they couldn't afford to feed their children. You know, some daughters were being sold off. So the Salvation Army stepped in and worked on that mission. So, and that's kind of the important part of this kind of training, this history of the Salvation Army. That's the basis. Why we're here, why we're sitting in this room. You know, it's rich in its knowledge. So, first class Salvation Army Foundation. Currently, there's one course available, and that's the history and events of the Salvation Army. Within that, there are 10 modules, 10 sub-modules, and they're videos that you can watch. It's self-paced. You know, you can go through the material. At the end of each video, there's a little knowledge-based test that you take. If you pay attention to the videos, there's no reason why you wouldn't pass the little test at the end. Okay, but personally, I'm about halfway through. And it's great information. There's some information that I knew, but there's some information that I'm learning. Much like, you know, when you study the scriptures, you know, you may have been studying the scriptures since you were 10 years old, but you can open up the Bible today and it'll tell you something different. You'll have eyes of grace. You'll understand a lesson or an example that's been given. You have a different understanding. And this is what this is for me. Okay? Our next module that we have is the biblical studies. Introduction to Bible study is one module. Old Testament survey is another module. And an introduction to the New Testament. Okay. There's a module on leadership development, an introduction to leadership, and basic skills for effectively teaching a Bible lesson. I look at these two and I see a couple of needs and concerns that have come up in the past. Okay. Be able to teach a Bible lesson, homiletics. That was one of ours. Okay. You know, I think we're going to have that conversation a little later on. You know, building core council. You know, those kinds of things. It's important as far as the training material is concerned, that it's available to us so we can learn and we can have a common, you know, a common base to which to move forward with. Okay, because right now, I know I asked this last year when I met up with my region last year. We had a couple of new Corps Sergeant Majors in the group, and I asked, you know, have you been given a clear set of guidelines for what you're to do as a Corps Sergeant Major? And I know that it, you know, like when I was made Corps Sergeant Major, my officers, they poured into me, but they had an idea of what Corps Sergeant Major is supposed to do. You go to another corps, that officer has an idea of what a Corps Sergeant Major is supposed to do. Okay. And it's more than just, you know, reading announcements and maybe doing ties. So it's courses like this that can be, it's courses like that that can be added to this, you know, to once we identify a local officer's position, that training can be used to give ourselves a common set of rules. Okay, this is what's expected of you as a Corps secretary. Okay, this is what you're supposed to, you're keeping the record, you're, attending, things of that nature. Basic training that everybody can follow, and it's common to the, to the entire Salvation Army. And then they have a personal growth, track, rest in the midst of stress, emotional health for spiritual growth, and introduction to discipleship. There's another one. Something we've been talking about. How to make disciples, right? There's a training program for that. So, and then there's a new release that they just put out in July. And it's called Raise. Raise is a strategic plan for youth ministry, and it was born out of several significant times of critical discernment involving ministry partners from national, territorial, and divisional headquarters. From these initial moments of reflection came the seed for what was now become the Raise strategic plan. Currently, there's one training module under Raise, and it's about Raise. What it is, what it does, what it's meant to do. Okay. So we've talked about all the things that's provided in AMP. So what's the most important question?
How do you get
That's right. How do you get there? So, how do you get there is easy. www.sldleadership.org. Everybody has access. I have some sheets up here. This sheet is a copy of this card, okay? There's a QR code on the sheet that will take you right to the website. This website is accessible through all online resources. So if you have a phone, you have a tablet, computer, you can access the information that's on AMP and take the classes and the whole 9 yards. Now, failed to mention one thing. The courses that are available under AMP, you can receive college continuing education credits for the classes that you take. Okay, so if you're in a program where you're required to have continuing education credits, it's a perfect resource for that, and it's free. The only thing that you're taking is your time and the willingness to learn. Perfect way to get to it. Okay, so I've got some screenshots to how you get to, once you get past, get to the AMP, clicking enter, browsing for your categories. Click here to start, brings you to this page. Okay. Most of us will need to create a new account. All right. I tried it. I tried to log in with my Salvation Army email address, and because I wasn't registered into the system, it didn't know who I was. So you have to register yourself into the system by creating a new account. At which point, then you can put if you want to use your Salvation Army email address, if you have one, you can put that in there as a point of contact, or your personal email address. They both work. Okay. Brings you the new account screen, brings you to this page. It'll ask you to generate a username, password, put your email address in and everything like that. Put your contact information. Now, I have one thing to say about filling in your information. Make sure you read through it carefully. After you fill it out, make sure you reread it. Make sure your email address specifically is correct. Because if you don't have that correct, the system will send you a confirmation email before you can log into the system. Now, I don't know, it's hard to see. I went through, okay, I'm excited, I'm gonna take some training, da 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 da. So, the mistake that I made, I left an S out. My email address. Hit the okay, all right, where's my email? It's not showing up. Went back, oh. So without a proper email address, you will not be able to log into the system. I had to re-register, with the right email address, different username to make sure. So I just wanted to point that out. Yes, ma'am.
Are we gonna use our personal email or our Salvation Army?
You can use either one, okay? That's kind of the beauty of this system. It will accept any email that you want to receive, okay, and that you can receive information from, okay? So once you get that, successfully fill everything in and bring it up to this screen, and that's where it's gonna send your confirmation email to. And then you can log in. Once you log in, this screen will show up. You wanna go to the Academy for Mission Preparedness, and that's where your course selections will be available to you, okay? The first one, I know I only mentioned the 5, but the first one is about AMP itself, okay? The rest, biblical studies, the raise, leadership development, personal growth, Salvation Army Foundation. And I think they have different level. I think most of these are half credits, and I forgot which one was a full credit because of the amount of information that's being provided, okay?
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, ma'am.
My court had a little trouble with Ray's, getting some of the information and understanding. So I wondered if any other court, if Ray's was real clear to them and they understand it really well, or do you have a little problem with it? It's for the youth, right?
Yes, and are you asking if any of the Corps has implemented raise?
Yeah, we haven't really, because we're missing some information.
Okay, all right. So, not sure, this is new material for me, like I said, it was just in July. When I was first introduced to this, raise wasn't there. So, that's a new program for me, and I'm hoping,
With the DYS,
yeah, I'm hoping that if you go, if you log in and you go into AMP, and you log into this module, and the one training that's available will explain, the basics of raise.
I think that what this material is more leadership training for youth as opposed to explanation
Of what?
of completing the raise information.
Okay, all right. Good enough, good enough.
If you have any questions with raise, talk to your divisional youth secretary.
Sounds good. So, I started out Salvation Army history. You click on there, it'll bring you to, most of your course offerings will be listed this way. You click on it, it'll give you the course outline. Like I said, there's 10 modules for this. And you can start right at the top and you work your way down through. It's a series of videos that have been recorded and provided by different Salvation Army officers or lay leaders within the division and the territory. Okay. So, with that, questions?
So I'm curious if this is something that can be used like in a classroom setting, like say for the Bible study, for example. Can it be put on the screen and used as a Bible study tool?
It can be, but it's only the credit will only go to the person that's logging in.
Right.
Okay.
But if credit were not an
issue?
interest or an issue, then I'm curious how the screens look to know whether it's something that can actually be used in a, you know.
You should be able,
projected
you
on
should be able, it's a video, yeah.
It's a video.
Yeah, you should be able to put it up just like you do in a computer record there, operate too.
So,
Yes, you can do that. I also know that they, and I don't know if you have the contact information for, the EBC who does this, but they also do in-person trainings in classroom setting. They'll come for a weekend or a week or whatever, and it's at no cost to the field.
It would be nice to see, concerning the history of the Salvation Army, if we could put together 3 or 4 minute segments about certain events, like you were mentioning about
Matchsticks
human
and-
trafficking and stuff like that. And on a Sunday morning, during a holiness meeting, just throw a 3 minute thing on there, on our overheads, like we do with other stuff, so that cause most of our people in our Corps, I think, are not privy to the rich history they have, and kind of teach them and make them feel like, ooh, I'm part of that, you know?
yeah, no, and I think that information is available, if I'm not mistaken, through Ministry Toolkit.
Yeah,
You know,
because
there are
the
videos
Orlando
available through
Corps,
video-
I know had
ministries.
used it before.
To show like during a holiness meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, just.
Yeah.
you know,
Short
It would-
education.
Yeah.
yeah, and it would